wellness. That's nature's default position. If the front of that tapestry is working and nature's all working the way it's supposed to be, the default position overall is wellness. If my farm is working correctly, my tomatoes should be healthy. My cows should be healthy. The default position of a marriage is that it's working. Okay? The default position of a healthy family is happy kids. Okay? That's the default position. And when it's not like that, then something is wrong. And so we're working with creating a terrain of health. It's not about germs and viruses. It's about a terrain of health. Are you all aware that since April 1 last year, 1 in every 4 baby pigs born in the U.S. has died? There's a brand new disease, just named. It's called epidemic porcine viral diarrhea. The first case was April 1 last year. Now, if there's anything worse than diarrhea, it's viral diarrhea. But since April 1 last year, 1 in 4 baby pigs born in the U.S. has died. So from January 5 to about February 10 this year, pork futures went up 200%. Unprecedented. Never happened before. Okay? This is what happens in orthodoxy. And if you read the pork checkoff research and all the money that our country is pouring in to this problem, and believe me, it's got the pork industry scared to death. Nobody, I haven't read any research scientist that said, wait a minute everybody, instead of trying to get the government to pay more money in our land-grant universities to fund a vaccine or a new, concoction pharmaceutical to combat epidemic porcine viral diarrhea, what if we just tried to discover the terrain that would make our pigs happy?
That's right.
Nobody asks it. To ask it, you're a heretic. Because the orthodoxy is that life is fundamentally mechanical. Life is not fundamentally biological, it's fundamentally mechanical. And however we can grow things faster, fatter, bigger, cheaper, the better off we'll be. That's the orthodoxy. Among all spectrums of the culture. I remember 20 years ago when Bill Clinton hired that French chef. And the French chef came to Washington, to the White House, and said he was going to use free-range chickens. Well, the Washington food section editor called me and, asked me to say a couple things about it. Of course, I was all for it. Well, it got on the media, next thing I knew, Patrick Buchanan, the conservative, political guy, called me for his radio program and wanted to find out what this, free-range chicken thing was. And he asked me, he says, well, what's the difference between yours and the ones that, most people eat? I said, well, for one thing, ours don't do drugs. And Patrick Buchanan said, the reason I'm telling this story, I think it's so important, is because many of us appreciate his conservative, self-reliance, small government, views. And he's not as far the enemy as maybe some of the others would be. And he asked me, well, why do they feed them drugs? I said, well, for one thing, it makes them grow faster. And I was having a list here, and he cut me off. He said, well, what could possibly be wrong with anything that makes them grow faster? Well, cancer is a fast growth. There's nothing inherently healthy about growth. I mean, there are things that can grow that we don't want. But this is the orthodoxy. Liberal, conservative, it doesn't matter. Green, Tea Party, doesn't matter. This is the orthodoxy. You know, it dates back to Justice von Liebig in 1837. When the world went from spirits to other things. And that is, you know, he showed us that his vacuum tubes, that all of life is just a reconfiguration of nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. That's all there is. That soil is inert. Soil is just inert, and we just essentially put a chemical IV into the soil to, you know, plant food, right? That's the orthodoxy of our day. We, heretics, universally, I'll bet, unless there's a Monsanto plant in here, I'll bet that every person in here would argue that the soil is alive and is a living organism, a fantastical, almost mystical, complex relationship of more beings moving and responding and eating and dying and procreating and doing all the stuff that they do that you can imagine. And that's what the soil is. It's not just inert material. You know, the biggest difference between living things and mechanical things is that living things can heal. And boy, is that a blessing. My dad used to tell me when we'd go out to do some dangerous job with a machine, he said, remember, machines don't forgive. If you mishandle that tractor and it rolls over and kills you, you can apologize to that tractor all day for putting it in a bad situation, and it doesn't care a lick that it just killed you. But among living things and people, we can forgive. We can be mistreated and forgive the mistreater. We can mistreat and have the mistreated person forgive us. That's the difference. Healing damage can only ultimately come when we recognize the principle that life is fundamentally biological and not mechanical. Because it's only life that can heal. Number 2. So the first one is the principle that, whatever it was, nature is broken and we have to fix it. All right? Nature is broken and we have to fix it. Number 2, efficiency requires monospeciation. Efficiency requires monospeciation. We see it everywhere in the foodscape. You know, there are very few people. I mean, even some of our friends ask, but don't we really need Tyson chicken houses to feed the world? Don't we really need Smithfield confinement hog factories to feed the world? I mean, come on. Look at the efficiency. So we've created the orthodoxy of single-species farms, single-use infrastructure, linear marketing channels. I mean, we can't put 2 different kinds of things on a tractor trailer. It can only be one kind of thing. You can't put pigs and chickens in the same trailer. You got to have a trailer for pigs and a trailer for chickens. And you can't put, you can't put tomatoes and squash on the same trailer. You got to put a trailer full of tomatoes, and then you got to have a separate trailer for squash. You even have to have separate kind of equipment to do that. The Farm Bill subsidizes only 6 things. I'm not asking for more things to be subsidized, don't get me wrong here. But it has identified 6 things, including crop insurance. Only 6 things. The whole thing is geared toward monospeciations, single-use foods processing. You know, you can't dress chickens and beef on the same concrete pad. No, that would never do. You've got to have separate facilities. You can't can cherries and apples in the same facility. You got to have the apples over here and the cherries over here. I mean, it shows up even in workers. The average worker in America today can be taught their job in less than 20 minutes. You know, it goes back to what Henry Ford said when he would take tourists through the Ford Motor Company factories. And the only lament he had about the factories, he would tell his friends, was the only problem with this is that I need to hire a whole man when I really only need his hands. And so this efficiency moves us into where, you know, the average worker does just one little itty-bitty thing and gets carpal tunnel syndrome and, you know, muscle motion sickness and all that. That's the orthodoxy, that efficiency requires monospeciation. Heretics, we believe that the answer is in diversity and multi-speciation. And so we completely embrace the permaculture concept of stacking, where we have multiple enterprises, where we have multi-speciation, plants and animals. You know, carrots love tomatoes, and we run ecomobiles behind cows, and we have all this complexity and relational stuff so that we can create confused pathogens. And confused pathogens are good. Confused pathogens are what you want. The fact is that the most elemental, novice, backyard, multi-speciated, diversified attempt at gardening is more productive per square yard than the most fantastical National Geographic pictured GMO single species industrial farm in California. That's a fact. A multi-speciated system is more productive per square yard, per square foot, whether it's indoors, outdoors, or wherever it is, and because those of us that are participating in this get to do a job over here, and then a job over here, and a job over here because of all the job diversification, we don't get carpal tunnel syndrome. We don't get motion sickness, because one minute we're, you know, exercising our legs, the next minute we're exercising our arms, and we're doing all sorts of different things. The idea here is that we're using nature as pattern. Variety is a beautiful and functional thing. And so heretics, while the orthodoxy is because of the stench and smell and ugliness and fragility and sterility of single species farms, we have to outlaw people being able to take pictures of them. And we have to walk through sheep dip and put on a hazmat suit to, you know, go visit our food. And we have to pass right to farm laws so the people coming out, when the farmers go bankrupt and people from the city come out and build their residential estates in the countryside, their little 5-acre farmettes, that they won't complain about the stinky CAFO next door. So we got to pass special protection for the stinky farms so that the new neighbors can't sue the stinky farms for stinkiness. You've got to be a heretic like us to say, in the face of this orthodoxy, good farms should be aesthetically and aromatically, sensually romantic.
That's right.
They should be places that a kindergarten class loves to come and visit.
That's right.
Where the children aren't walking all day going, ish and ooh and ee and We should view our farms as art forms. Art forms in the landscape. That's sheer heresy. Number 3,